Willie, the Worried Worm. Story and illustrations by Jacqueline Osborne. Story read by the author's mother. This is the story of William Wallingford Worm and the answer he finds to a big concern. It's not that his world was full of strife, he just didn't know what to do in life. "If only I had a crystal ball," said Willie to his mother when he was small, "my future I then would be able to see." His mother replied, "Well, that may be, but when searching for any treasure, the quest itself can bring you pleasure. So if something looks fun and worthwhile to you, just give it a try and see how you do." "Well, what if I try and it doesn't work out?" It seems that William had some doubt. "There will be times when one plan has failed that something better is being unveiled. Simply move on and try something new, and this will keep you from feeling blue." Willie was puzzled by what she had said. "But how will I know what to do instead?" His mother gave this question some thought, then passed along what she had been taught. "Your true heart's desire is easier to see when your thoughts are pleasant and worry-free. It isn't required that you're number one. Just making the effort is a job well done. Think of when you were building that fort. Your skills had often come up short. But it isn't important whether perfect or flawed. It's the effort itself that one should applaud. And when you were learning to ride a bike, it wasn't as simple as riding a trike. Yes, you did take many a spill before at last you'd mastered the skill. But because of the thought you kept in your head, learning was a joy instead of a dread. It may be easier said than done, but life is really meant to be fun. Have a clear picture when making new plans. Use your mind before using your hands. But here is something you now can do. Help your mother by stirring this stew." Willie smiled as he picked up the spoon. Mulberry stew he'd be eating at noon. When William was grown, he set out on his own. It was a warm spring day when he started on his way. After traveling nearly a mile, he stopped for a little while. He sat by a stream, looking forward to lunch. His mother had packed some goodies to munch. As he was ready to take a bite, he became distracted by a remarkable sight. A beaver had made a dam with such care that it easily withstood the weight of a bear. "That's what I'll do!" exclaimed Willie with glee, and he gathered some twigs from a tall willow tree. The mulberry leaf sandwich he simply forgot. He was far too busy to give it a thought. The sticks that he gathered he laid by the water, which brought to his mind beavers and otters. That's when suddenly it occurred to him. "I can't build a dam. I haven't learned to swim. It's easy to see this isn't for me. Now where in the world can that sandwich be?" Just after his lunch he was watching some bees as they buzzed among blossoms with diligent ease. They were collecting nectar for their hive. This is how honeybees stay alive. Willie watched the flowers as they swayed. "I do believe that's how honey is made." As he thought of cakes and cookies and bread, visions of a bakery came into his head. Seeing a flower not as tall as the rest, he put his climbing skills to the test. But collecting nectar was far too hard. This was a plan he'd have to discard. On Willie's face he was wearing a frown. He was in no hurry to climb back down. He thought of the beaver, he thought of the bees. Surely there is something out there for me. Later that day Willie met a creature who had on her back an unusual feature. "This is my house," she explained to him. "I go inside when the weather is grim. And best of all, wherever I roam, here or there, I'm always at home." A snail is now what he wanted to be. Seems a bit silly, I'm sure you'll agree. He looked for a house to carry around, but an old matchbox was all that he found. The box felt awkward and made him stumble, and then it rained, which made it crumble. This won't work. I can't be a snail. I knew all along it was bound to fail. Willie thought of the snail's unusual dome. Oh, how he'd wanted his own mobile home. Willie found shelter under a bush of blue. After the rain he would start anew. The sun came out, no longer was it gray, so William started on his lonely way. He wandered down the rain-soaked path, his thoughts drifting to a nice warm bath. Never had William felt so alone, and that's when he decided to start for home. He could have avoided the obstacle ahead, but being so sad, Willie tripped instead. A piece of matchbox lay in his way. It surely seemed this wasn't his day. He lay on the ground feeling quite blue, as he thought of the things that he couldn't do. Just when his future was looking dim, the words of his mother came back to him. Don't linger on things that make you sad. All that will do is make you feel bad. It isn't silly, nor is it sappy, to dwell on things that make you happy. For whatever you give your attention to is likely to be what flows to you. That's when he saw an amazing thing, a spider making some kind of string. William was dazzled and eager to try. "Don't be absurd," said the spider with a sigh. "This takes a natural skill," she rudely laughed. "Now be off with you and leave me to my craft." Willie tried anyway, and to the spider's surprise, a web he was spinning right before her eyes. He was delighted with what he had done, but what could he do with the string he had spun? An owl was watching from the limb of a tree. "You are a silkworm, this is quite clear to me. And silk becomes cloth, my words you can believe. For, unlike a spider's, your web you can weave." It took Willie a moment, just 5 seconds flat, before he decided to do just that. So with his cousin he opened a shop. The garments they make are the cream of the crop. And although he enjoys having some fun, reading a book or lying in the sun, taking a walk or going for a swim, Willie especially loves to spin. So it really doesn't matter what others do. You have to follow what's right for you. And if something you try should go awry, do your best not to grumble or cry. For the very thing that made Willie grumble, that old matchbox which caused him to stumble, was precisely the thing that allowed him to see just exactly what he wanted to be. So if your plan should go amiss, there just might be a reason for this. Perhaps it wasn't right for you. Of course, that's just my point of view. But if you'll recall, it was only after falling that our little friend had found his calling. And while he does like to vacation, William never tires of his vocation. The end. If you would like your own copy of Willie the Worried Worm,